Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Thoughts on the Couch. This is our second attempt at this experiment thing that we're still doing. Anyway, my name is Tarun.
My name is Tim.
And my name is Krishna.
And today we are going to talk about a few interesting things that's come up over the past week. The first thing that I think all of us saw was PlayStation Productions.
I mean, let's get right into it, right?
Yeah.
So, PlayStation Productions. Sony Interactive Entertainment have announced the launch of PlayStation Productions. It's a production studio that will take Sony's catalog of video games and adapt them for film and TV. Apparently, production on some projects has already begun. What does it include?
There have been reports of the Uncharted movie, which was announced a few years ago now, with Tom Holland being a teenager version of Nathan Drake. No one's really heard anything about that since. All we know now, it's reportedly in advanced development. And whatever studio had it before no longer is handling it, and now it's being handled by PlayStation Productions.
Yeah, in the meantime, we've also heard a little bit more about the movie based on the critically acclaimed game The Last of Us, which was announced way back in 2014. It's reportedly stalled, and Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann has claimed that the movie is now development hell, and also that he would be glad if the movie is never made. We know that Sony has like a massive catalog of popular video games they can adapt, but generally speaking, video game movies such as Assassin's Creed and Warcraft, they don't do so well critically or financially. Obviously, Detective Pikachu is the first to do better than okay. Before that, we had Mortal Kombat, which is still isn't that great, but it's kind of okay. So what do you guys think about the establishment of PlayStation Productions?
I don't know if I should be excited or worried, because video game movies, there isn't a good history of them being very good. I mean, we had Detective Pikachu, but that's only one out of hundreds of movies.
I've been kind of having mixed feelings about this myself, because I'm thinking like it might be a good idea, because you have people who make games, make the movies that are also based on their games. Like they're much more closely connected to the end product, which I think is interesting, which has not really been done before.
See, I've always had the thought as well, like you would think you want the movie version of your favorite video game, but for something like God of War or Last of Us, at least for me, part of the experience is like the journey and connection of hours and hours of content you go through with the characters, like you build a bond towards, while the movie doesn't have that time.
A big thing about video games is what makes them different is the interactivity, because that's the way you connect with the characters on screen. So sometimes I think that's the biggest obstacle movie directors have to face when they're trying to make video game movies. And at the same time, it's not like every single IP of PlayStations will make such a good film. Some of them might make, for example, good TV, because sometimes you have games with like a lot of content and it's hard to cover that in just 2 hours. Some of them would be better as TV. What kind of IPs do you think are best suited for becoming films?
I feel like the Uncharted film can definitely become a thing. We already had the fan film with Nathan Fillion, which was a fan favorite casting. Everyone wanted him to be Nathan Drake.
As I understand it, he was like in the running for that role for like such a long time, and eventually he just like became literally almost too old to play the role.
Yes, but he had the fan film and everyone loved it. It's proof that an Uncharted film can be done.
Because the thing about the Uncharted series is that you kind of had that Indiana Jones kind of vibe, and that's fun. People want to see that.
Yeah, it has everything a movie would want. And I think it can definitely translate well for a movie.
The biggest game on my mind right now is The Last of Us. So I'm thinking that would work better as TV.
When it comes to The Last of Us, I kind of agree with Neil Druckmann. I wouldn't want The Last of Us movie or TV show to be centered around Joel and Ellie. Druckmann had an idea of like having two other characters from that same universe, that same world, and follow their story. And I feel like that would actually work, because taking Joel and Ellie out of the video game element and putting them into TV or film may not make the same connection you've had with them before, because you don't have the interaction or that hours invested.
Basically, I think what I'm hearing from both you and Druckmann is that you guys would like to keep Ellie and Joel's story as part of the games. And I can kind of understand that, because personally, as a guy who's played through them at least a few times, it's like I have a special connection with those characters, and having someone basically play them on the screen, it just wouldn't be the same for me. Even though, people say Hugh Jackman should play Joel, and I'm like, I can kind of see that. But at the same time, don't know how a movie would turn out.
Could you see an animated movie become a thing? Like there was Ratchet and Clank, which was mediocre, but it was okay for a video game movie. And there was an interesting marketing tactic too, since the game and the movie had the same storyline and it's the movie based on the game, based on the movie.
Apart from Ratchet and Clank, obviously, I don't know which PlayStation IPs you'd fit to an animated movie.
I think they can do it with Jack and Daxter. It's old, but they can bring it back as a movie.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, Sony's actually had some good success with Spider-Verse. So, if it had the same people behind that, that would be interesting. I don't know. Can you guys think of any other IPs you think could become better, like films and TVs?
If they were to go with something a bit more recent, they could also go with Detroit Become Human.
Detroit Become Human, that would be such an interesting TV show to me because you can, to my mind, I'm a huge fan of Westworld, and they can kind of fold that kind of feeling into it. I think that would be like an excellent TV show, easily. Obviously, you have some risk because, it's all about player choice. It would be an interesting experiment, is what I mean to say.
I don't know how they would translate that. You know how when you play the game, they give the player some time to pick a choice. I don't know how that hesitation would play out.
It'd be like one of those Netflix experiments. I think it'd be interesting because obviously with that kind of huge budget, you could introduce new characters, you could expand on the universe. And when I was playing that game, I felt like it's a really interesting game story-wise, but I felt like in terms of the world, there was like more to see, and I wanted to see it. And that's how you tell it's such a good game. Obviously, we've been discussing like casting choices a little bit, but with Detroit, obviously you could just hire the motion capture actresses.
Yeah, since the models are based right off of them. Yeah, something like even God of War, I guess, if they ever wanted to make a film with him.
You see, God of War is like the most interesting one to me because I don't know how would that be a film? Would that be a TV series? Because it's kind of like a journey, but then it's all those little moments, right? I
see it as a very long-running TV series, or at least a one-season miniseries.
Just based on the most recent game, I think that would be good. I'm sorry, I just need to get this out of my system right now. Am I the only one who can see Evan Rachel Wood as Aloy from Horizon? I want that movie.
I haven't really thought about that casting choice, but it could probably work.
I figured like Horizon would be a good TV series. Anyways, speaking of PlayStation, we've also heard a little more about Sony's next generation console.
There's that leaked video from Wall Street Journal's Takashi Mochizuki, who may have offered us a first unofficial look at the power of Sony's upcoming PlayStation console.
This is the story that he posted a video in a tweet where Sony basically ran this video demonstrating the difference between the PS4 Pro and the PS5. So basically what it was, just to give you guys a little bit of background, they were showcasing, obviously, Marvel Spider-Man, which is PS4 exclusive. So basically, we saw what the Pro takes up to 8 seconds to load in a section of the game. The new unnamed next-generation PlayStation loads the same second in 0.8 of a second.
Basically 10 times faster than the PS4 Pro.
Was it 0.8? Oh, wow.
More specifically, 0.83, but yeah, that's pretty
There was
quick.
also this, more fascinating than that to me, was that this demo, they also showed like a fly-through of New York City in the game on both consoles. And it's very clear that on the next generation console, we're just going to call it PS5 for convenience. It was like way smoother. It was uninterrupted. So obviously this roughly squares with the interview with Wired, where they interviewed Mark Cerny from Sony, and he said he revealed many of the hardware specifications of the next console. He said it will feature an SSD and support for 8K. 8K is interesting, isn't it? I was always under the impression that 4K is still the standard people are trying to get to.
But I can understand it if they want to make it future-proof, considering it's been rumored that this will be their final generation of console, because now that they're finally doing backwards compatibility with PS4, because they still want to keep the PS4 community to come on PS5 without ditching their games there.
Yeah, you know what's been really interesting to me was that obviously it's been such a long time since we had PS4 released, but obviously if you can remember that far back, it was like we had this period of time where it's like PS3 and PS4 at the same time, and games were still being released on both. And eventually we just saw it sort of fade out PS3 support. So obviously they're planning the same thing here.
Yeah, I think the first year they're going to release this, which is rumored to be 2020 or 2021. They had said before that they plan to keep the PS4 support going on for the next 3 years. So it's possible they can release this in 2020 and not expect a profit for PS5, which they have done before with the release of PS4.
Obviously, current fans of the PS4, there are lots of fans of PS4. I'm a fan of PS4. And obviously, I was really glad to hear that according to they've done like an investor relations presentation, and they said, many of our upcoming exclusives, we're talking The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Death Stranding, they're still coming out on PS4, even though they might be coming out next year at the same time as the rumored PS5 launch. So I'm just glad to hear that. So I don't know what you guys think. Are you guys going to upgrade on day one, or are you just going to wait? Because I know we've had problems before with the launch models.
I think I'm gonna wait it out until they stop releasing copies for the PS4.
Yeah, I would wait as well. I have a PS4 myself and I love it. I wouldn't like shell out money immediately to buy a new console if it was released.
See, that's interesting because I don't know about day one purchases, but I'm not the kind of guy who does that. Because obviously there's like still kinks to work out, and I still have like the first generation PS4 downstairs, and it just doesn't run as well as my PS4 Pro. Obviously because like there's some design flaw in it. So I'm like, gotta wait it out. So anyways, what do you guys think about cloud gaming and streaming games in Google Stadia, for example? Do you think that's the future of gaming, or?
Yeah, now that PS5 is also gonna be, or at least rumored to be supporting cloud gaming, as it is going to be, as I said before, a last generation for consoles. I can see that they're thinking about the future. They're trying to think of a time where most of their consumers will have sufficient internet to stream their games.
Yeah, it's device independent. That's what I think they're trying to go for.
They're also like trying to compete with Stadia. Obviously, they see like, I didn't think much of Stadia when they announced it. Obviously, because that's down to have like a terrible internet connection. But obviously they think it's a bit more of competition. So if it's going to support cloud gaming. So anyways, all looks good for Sony so far. Unfortunately, some other game companies aren't doing so well.
It's just Telltale games, which are being delisted from Steam
and GOG. So anyways, according to GOG, they're going to stop listing, any of the company's games starting at 10 a.m. on the 27th of May. Tales from the Borderlands also gone from Steam. They're delisting games, we're talking The Wolf Among Us, Telltale's Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy. So basically, Eurogamer asked publisher 2K whether they're getting Tales from the Borderlands back up. And they said, we'll try to do it. But the interesting thing about this is that nobody's actually said why they're being removed in the first place. With Borderlands 3 right around the corner, this is actually quite significant because obviously it's like all one, story arc.
I saw that now that Telltale Games is shut, they're not there to gain the profits off of the game anymore. So I don't know how the business works exactly, but I guess they don't know where to send those profits after if the game makes a sale.
Yeah, because obviously, if you guys don't know what happened to Telltale Games, I'm just going to give you like a quick 30-second, So basically, they kind of shuttered their doors last September. They were in severe financial troubles, which surprised a lot of people because obviously they've made some very good games in recent years and they've taken a lot of IPs. They had, I believe Stranger Things was on board. They done Batman. They done The Walking Dead. So obviously, like many of their staff were laid off. They filed lawsuits against the company. They put a skeleton crew to finish off the last of the company's projects, but they were fired as well. For the last season of their Walking Dead game, they had to bring in Skybound Games, which is a separate developer, to finish the final season. So obviously it's been quite unfortunate, but obviously we've been talking a lot about crunch culture in the gaming industry. And this is obviously just like another example of that. And it's just not a good situation for those employees. I don't know. What do you guys think of them being delisted? Have you guys played those games?
I played Tales from the Borderlands and I really enjoyed it. I played it maybe another time for different choices. I really enjoyed everything about it. The humor was great. I liked the game. I think a lot of Borderlands fans even liked it as well. And it definitely, like you said, it connects. The character returns in Borderlands 3, and seeing it gone is kind of odd and not really getting a full explanation as to why.
You see, that's what stands out to me, you see, because then nobody's given a reason as to why this happens. And that's tough because I always had in the back of my mind, I'm going to go through the whole Walking Dead series from Telltale. Once they've done it all, I'm going to go through it.
About Walking Dead, I haven't heard anything about Walking Dead being delisted or when they will be delisted.
They mentioned Batman, The Wolf of Us, obviously Guardians of the Galaxy, they did that series as well. But The Walking Dead is not being mentioned, which is interesting.
Don't have a clear idea what's going on. I know the employees, they're frustrated as well because this is years of work they're put into this, and just to see it gone.
Yeah, it just vanished into thin air. Sucks for them.
But I think they have a bit of an understanding why it's happening.
So yeah, sorry to put a damper on your guys' morning, afternoon, evening. I don't know where you're listening to this, but hey, you got to cover them all, right?
Now moving on to an issue that a lot of people in the gaming community feel strongly about.
Yes, we're talking Anti-Lootbox Bill. So Republican Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri has recently introduced a bill that will ban loot boxes and pay to win, specifically for games targeted at children or are played by children. So should this bill pass and become law, basically developers and publishers will be fined for introducing these mechanics. He was interviewed by Kotaku. He himself is not a gamer, and he said the bill was an idea brought on by parents' concerns about finding unexpected charges to bank accounts, that sort of thing. Obviously, gamers wrote to him as well saying it's spoiling, video gaming for them. He's basically saying that it's the age-old argument we're trying to do. It's like preventing addiction And it's essentially he compared them to putting casinos in children's games.
I'm pretty sure some gamers will agree with that perspective.
I'm not sure if I would go that far, but I can see where he's coming from. I can see like people getting addicted to loot boxes quite easily. Because I remember reading this article way back when. It's such a good article. If I find it, obviously I'll link it to you guys in the video. But it talked about how video game companies like intentionally design loot boxes to be like a draw. So like, you know, when you open them, they set off fireworks, they make nice noises and all that kind of stuff. You know, if you're thinking like Overwatch loot boxes, for example, I can see how people get addicted to that because it's like psychological.
For those of you who are not very clear on the controversy for loot boxes and pay to win and loot boxes are a little different. It's really depends how the loot boxes are presented. Pay to win would basically mean that people can pay real life money in virtual currency to buy something which will give them an advantage in a competitive video game.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm not sure, like, because obviously we have to talk about the bill. The bill is the big thing to me, but more interesting than the bill is how Hawley himself explains how the stuff he's going to put in the bill. And obviously, you know, just looking at his discussion in his interview, I can see some stuff that's just not going to work. For example, like his build, it doesn't actually refer to game ratings such as, you know, E for everyone or T for teen. And basically it just defines like all the games targeted would be where the target audience is under the age of 18. And obviously he said the big idea behind this legislation is to protect like children. Even though he acknowledges that adults are also affected by addiction, they're on the lookout for the tactics used by developers, which I think is interesting because it's not really addressing like adult addiction, is it? Just say like people are on the lookout. Obviously, like I think some adults are more vulnerable to this.
I feel like they're trying to imply that having this gambling scheme of investing money in a loot box of random chance to get an item you hope will be there will like plant an incentive to gamble more in the future.
Obviously there's like a huge discussion of whether like people is gaming disorder a thing, is like can people get addicted to loot boxes, is it gambling? And I know like in previous proposed legislation, I know in Hawaii, they tried to regulate loot boxes and it's failed. Hawley has obviously said that obviously he's got a great response from parents and gamers and he wants to push this issue. And I think, you know, pushing the issue is probably a good thing to do.
I think when it comes down to gaming disorder addiction, I feel like a lot of gamers would say that it only becomes an addictive problem if it's affecting your social life or friends and family around you. Then I can see that as a problem. It's an addiction problem. You're gaming too much. You should probably cut back and work on your social life. But in most cases, it's not like that. And some people do confuse addiction just because someone likes gaming. They think they're addicted when they're really not.
You know, what I found was really interesting was I think obviously in Europe's quite big on legislating against these kind of things, you know, more so than America. And they were looking at this, you know, is, you know, loot boxes gambling? And they said it wasn't because when you open a loot box, you always get something, which I think is like, to me, that kind of misses the point. Because obviously when you're playing to open a loot box, well, I don't know, when I open a loot box, I know what kind of stuff I want. If we're talking like skins, if we're talking like stuff like that, I know what I want from a loot box. If I don't get that, it's like getting nothing essentially. So I don't know whether they address that or not.
Yeah, I think one of the few companies that have done loot boxes right is Blizzard with Overwatch. You get cosmetics. It's not giving an advantage to the game. It's just purely for self-satisfaction.
You know, the interesting thing about this thing was I was reading that basically, I'm not, obviously Hawley's a politician, so, you know, take everything he says with a grain of salt. You know, try not to believe all that. He obviously said like the industry was quite concerned about this. And he was saying like the lobbyists were not happy he was doing this. And obviously in the interview, the concern was raised that, you know, what happens if video game companies, you know, suffer financial loss or they just, you know, go bankrupt entirely. And his response was he thought that, you know, these people are resourceful and they can design their games to make monies in other ways. He was specifically asked about EA, which is actually kind of funny to me.
Because EA profit a lot from FIFA Ultimate Team, for example.
He said, and I quote, FIFA would absolutely be covered by this legislation.
That takes away a lot of profits from EA, and that puts them in huge trouble.
Obviously, we need to take everything with a grain of salt because Hawley, he's kind of known as anti-tech. He's got a reputation for, you know, criticizing Facebook, Google, because he claims they're anti-conservative. You know, obviously, okay, so take this, you know, step back a little bit. Obviously, like we're looking at major game companies, who's going to be worst affected. I think, you know, EA comes to mind like straight away. But also, you know, I'm not really sure that legislation is the best way to handle this kind of thing. Because obviously, you know, Congress is not filled with like tech savvy people. We know that much. So I don't know how I feel about them tackling video games. Anyways, of course, speaking of EA, they have an exclusive license to develop games for Star Wars. And with that, it's time to move on to our weekly movie news.
Rise of Skywalker film has released some official still images. As you guys know, The Rise of Skywalker is to be the end of an era before Disney and Lucasfilm move on to different arcs in the future.
Obviously, I'm very hyped for this film. So obviously, we're just going to run a few of the most interesting images by you guys. So just so you guys can see. Obviously, it's from Vanity Fair. They've released an exclusive feature where they discuss it with people involved in the film, such as J.J. Abrams, Daisy Ridley, and Oscar Isaac, and people like that. So obviously, we can see, covers of the two central characters, Rey and Kylo Ren, plus some set images. We see Rey with her old staff. This to me is interesting because the lightsaber she used in the last film was actually destroyed, and well, not fully destroyed. The lightsaber we see she has in the trailer is the same one as the last two films, modified and reconstructed. Hopefully, we get to see how she gets a lightsaber back.
Yeah, we also got some shots of the Knights of Ren, which people have been waiting for since The Force Awakens. Obviously, some people were disappointed that they didn't show up in The Last Jedi, but
I'm disappointed. I know that much.
But now maybe those fans will be pleased to see them in the next film.
A new character, this one obviously being played by Kerry Russell, a scoundrel called Zori Bliss on the word of Kijimi.
She seems like a replacement for Phasma. Since we haven't seen anything about Phasma in the new film, it seems like they may use her to replace that role.
It seems to me like it's a risky move. Interesting, like introducing new characters. So I thought this is going to wrap everything up. Obviously, speaking of new characters, we also have Finn and Janna, played by Naomi Aki. Another creature, they're riding alien horses known as, let me see if I got this right, Hardy Orbaks. And they're leading a charge against the First Order, according to the caption. Obviously, we don't see the First Order. But again, glad to see them back. Gorgeous shot of Rey and Kylo in battle during like a heavy storm. Kind of cool. I thought it was concept art when I saw this one.
Yeah, so did I.
But it's apparently not.
Yeah, the cinematography is just top notch in these movies. I love it.
It's always has been. That's the thing about Star Wars. Okay, control the fanboy. Okay, so we see Mark Hamill with Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker with R2D2. Obviously, if you don't already, spoiler alert, he dies, becomes one with the Force in The Last Jedi. So interesting to see him back. Not quite ghostly looking. Very strange.
It may be a vision for all we know.
Or a flashback. Could be either.
Yes, that's true. Obviously, we see Billy D. Williams back as Lando Calrissian. Obviously, he got like a lot of cheers if you guys were watching the review of Episode 9 trailer at Star Wars Celebration. So he's got many cheers from the crowd on that. Obviously, taking control of the Falcon. And he has Poe Dameron as co-pilot, which is interesting. So anyways, what do you guys think of the upcoming film? And obviously, as the trilogy as a whole?
Seeing that Rian Johnson kind of threw away all the hooks that J.J. Abrams had offered him to go off of is interesting because J.J. Abrams is kind of having to start from scratch.
Yeah, I feel like he might retcon some of the details in The Last Jedi.
It's interesting you should mention that because Rian Johnson was actually asked by MTV in an interview. He basically asked, how would you feel if Abrams retconned some of your stuff? And he says, I want to sit back, I want to enjoy the film, and I want to be surprised, I want to be entertained by it. So it sounds like he doesn't mind even if other people do.
One of the things I see him retconning is the whole Kylo Ren saying Rey is literally nobody. Like they could go off of that storyline and make it really interesting, like she is really just a nobody and she just popped up in this world.
I don't really want them to retcon that. Obviously, I think Rey is my favorite character in the new trilogy.
Yeah, but I feel like J.J. Abrams had more of a plan for her, and having her just be nobody, I think, kind of, surprised J.J. Abrams on like what Rian Johnson was going for. So who knows? Maybe he'll run with it.
We can't move on without asking you guys favorite characters.
Oh, in this new Star Wars franchise?
Yeah, new trilogy. What do we think?
I quite like Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren. Very interesting villain, actually, I think.
Yeah, because he has two very well-known parents, Han Solo and Princess Leia, now General Leia, and he's had to grow up with so much expectation.
Tortured soul
Yeah.
characters. Yeah, fascinating.
I quite like Poe Dameron.
He has an interesting arc in the Last Jedi. That's
Yeah.
quite fascinating. Of course, years ahead will also give Star Wars fans a lot more to look forward to. We've also read a report by BuzzFeed that a new Star Wars movie based on Knights of the Old Republic is in development. Obviously, we're talking KOTOR, which is interesting. So for you guys who aren't familiar with KOTOR, it's set thousands of years before the films. You play a Jedi tasked with defeating, Darth Malak, who is a Dark Lord of the Sith, and he wants to who is looking to, you know, defeat the Galactic Republic and destroy it. Okay, so has no release date, not officially confirmed. Kathleen Kennedy, who heads Lucasfilm, has said KOTOR is something that Lucasfilm is always looking at. As of now, official schedule for future Star Wars films contains only the trilogy of films created by Game of Thrones D&D, which are going to be released every other year in the 2020s. Obviously, it revised the schedule after Solo disappointed. It's apparently being prepared by later Calogridis, I know I butchered that, sorry, who's worked on films such as Avatar and Alita. So guys, thoughts on KOTOR?
Well, I've never played the games or too familiar with the story, but I have heard great things about it, and it's a very passionate fan base to really have it come back in some way.
Personally, love to see a trilogy about it. Obviously, like I said in like our previous episode, that Star Wars is always going to be the 9 episodes for me, but if anything will get me back into it, it's KOTOR. That and probably the Obi-Wan movie. I want to see that.
I feel like the Obi-Wan movie is less and less possible the further we go on.
Which is kind of unfortunate. Anyways, moving on from Star Wars, let's talk about a franchise that's been run into the ground instead. Obviously, we're talking about the new trailer for Terminator Dark Fate. Before we get into this, like the cast or anything, what is up with that name?
Yeah, it feels like they hired an intern to come up with.
Obviously, casting, we have Arnie's back. I mean, how could you not be back? We have Linda Hamilton, who played Sarah Connor in the previous films. Obviously not the one, where Emilia Clarke plays her. We have Mackenzie Davis playing Grace, Natalie Reyes playing Danny Ramos, Gabriel Luna as the Terminator, which is kind of strange.
Terminator, not the Terminator, like
a Terminator. And then obviously we have James Cameron back to writing stories. So I don't know, guys, what do you expect from this movie?
I watched the trailer and I was just underwhelmed. I don't know. I'm not sure if I would watch it.
I don't expect too much from this movie.
I mean, I was thinking like back to the last Terminator movie, and that just completely you just sort of watch it and halfway through you're like, what is happening? Because I just didn't understand it.
I feel like they should have just ended it with Terminator 3. I know Terminator 3 isn't that great, but like seeing the reception of that, they should have just stopped. But for no one knows why they kept going on with Salvation and then Genesis, and now we have this.
Okay, let me just put this out there. Does anyone know what the state of the timeline is anymore? Because I feel like Genesis, they were trying to do, Days of Future Past, kind of mess it all up and revamp it, but I have no idea what it is.
They've killed Connor, essentially, right?
No, they turned him into a Terminator.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I don't even know if that's even canon now for this upcoming Terminator. No one knows what's canon anymore. Things have been retconned.
That's right.
Speaking of, John Connor becoming Terminator, I don't know, what I'm seeing is that why do the people making these films, they put the twists of the movies in the trailers themselves? I don't understand this. I don't know, why would you do that? Seems very counterproductive to me.
What did they reveal in this trailer? I saw people talking about it online, but I don't remember.
I guess the reveal here is that they revealed Mackenzie Davis's character as Terminator.
Oh, that's right. Half human, almost human, it says. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to try and make the audience think she's human, only to reveal, oh no, you're half robot. And then I guess they expect the audience to be surprised, despite the trailer showing it. The same thing with Genesis, when they showed the huge twist of John Connor being a Terminator. The movie still played out as if you shouldn't know that he was a Terminator.
No, I was just going to say I don't have much faith in James Cameron fixing this franchise. I'll still go see it, but I'm not going to
Didn't they do the same with Terminator 4 Salvation? The guy played by Sam Worthington.
I didn't see the trailer for that, but it was kind of hinted at that he was a Terminator. I don't know. I didn't care for it when they revealed it.
So obviously we just all collectively had our brains fried about that movie, so.
I would just watch this movie for Linda Hamilton, because she's awesome.
Really? I would watch it for Mackenzie Davis, because she's awesome. I remember, what is it? I can't remember what I've seen her in. Blade Runner, I think.
That's right. She was in Blade Runner.
In the same fashion that Terminator has fried our minds, we can also move on to talk about a game featured on our weekly review roundup that, also fried our minds. This week, we did a review for Overcooked, which is our PS Plus game for the month, and Aladdin, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But first, Overcooked. What do we think?
It's a fun party game, but you should definitely not play it alone. I think you'll just kill yourself. It's fun with another player. You have more strategy. You have a bit more fun, but you're still digging in your brain, and you just want to cut your brain out and throw it across the room.
That's very graphic, but I know what the feeling is. Yeah. Because obviously we had quite a bit of fun playing it. But, at times I felt like there were flaws in it that the second one probably fixed. We're talking like the controls didn't feel very precise all the time. And obviously, like, I wasn't expecting it to take so much out of me. I was like actually like physically tired after I finished playing this game. Like my head was like just completely like, everything in like the brain is just fused. I was just like, I had to like sit there and just drink water, and like I had a headache.
I think the game made me ill.
Obviously, so we don't want to recommend you guys play a game that will make you ill. I'm sure the sequel might be.
Yeah, and also like play it with more than 2. Like have 4 people, like the full roster. I feel like that's how it's just meant to be played.
Anyways, on to Aladdin, which was, to me, quite a pleasant surprise. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
We had our doubts, but really surprised by it. We were really satisfied. But in the end, you would still prefer or at least we do, prefer the animation.
Yeah, still prefer the animated one. I mean, it does a really good job with, obviously, Guy Ritchie, he's known for creating like these really slick like sequences, and obviously there's a lot of that. So obviously he was like a very good choice for this kind of movie. So I know I said it doesn't capture all like the visual magic of it when we saw the clip last week. I'm happy to be proved wrong. It captures a lot of that, and it takes a lot of the charm of the original as well. Managed to capture that feeling. Will Smith is really interesting. He takes his own spin on the character, which is, obviously it depends on how you feel about Will Smith.
I know some people were thinking like he's just gonna copy Robin Williams and that's gonna really bring down the movie, but no, he doesn't do that at all. He really brings his own style, his own twist to it.
Very entertaining. Still let down by Jafar, but obviously we saw that coming like a mile off.
He's just never that intimidating.
Not interesting.
It's like what he is in the animated film is not at all translated well into the live action, at least with that casting. I'm sure the actor did his best. He just didn't really fit the role. I feel like it just wasn't for him.
Yeah, obviously like the best thing that came out of Aladdin is I'm not so worried about Mulan coming out next year, but at the same time, it's not really a film that, justifies its need to exist. I'm not convinced that Disney needs to make these live action remakes still.
Yeah, in the end, the film is still unnecessary, but it's nice. I'm sure it's good for like the new generation to be introduced to Aladdin. For that, it's a good film. Bring your kids, watch Aladdin, show them what it is. You can show them this movie if they're not too fond of the animation.
Yeah, and they'll actually find that it's much better than the trailers make it look. Again, like a case of people need to hire better marketing teams.
Which for someone who I'm sure this is probably going to piss off a lot of people.
Oh, that's a good sentence.
For someone who hasn't watched either the classic animated Aladdin or this one, which one do you think I should start with?
See, to me, that's an interesting question.
No, the better question is, if I go watch the live action Aladdin, would it spoil the classic animated Aladdin for me?
I don't think it would spoil it for you exactly. The question of like which one you have to go with first, that's interesting, because I'm thinking like, do you go see the classic one and then you go see the live action one because that way you have like a full understanding of it, or do you go see this one right now, the live action one, and then watch the classic one? Because that way you kind of like see how the animated one is still kind of superior. So I'd say like go animated one first, personally.
Yeah, personally I would say watch the animated one just because it embraces the animation more. Everything seems, it's much more stylized, crazy, fun. With the live action, some things are a bit more grounded, understandably, as it is live action, and CGI can only do so much. But yeah, I would say also just start with the animation.
Still the animated one?
Yeah. So inherently, it's just a fantastical story. Better to watch it in animated form.
I'm still waiting for Mulan. I know there's Lion King coming out. People are hyped about that. I'm hyped for Mulan. Because you're hyped for the one that you've watched like first time, like the first Disney movie you watched. You always remember the first one. And I know mine was Mulan.
Really? Yours was Mulan?
Yeah, I can like absolutely confirm. Literally, we're talking like so old. We literally played it on videotape. You guys remember videotape? That's how old we're talking. Anyways, that's all for this week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Obviously, you can find us at the website above. We do 3 reviews a week. Sometimes features, sometimes opinions,
Yeah, and also follow us on Instagram if you like our content, and Twitter.
And obviously, subscribe on YouTube if you enjoy hearing us ramble and just basically make tons of mistakes because we don't have a script. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, we're, again, still figuring this out. This one was Okay, it's gonna be a bit of a mess to edit, especially with all the coughing in mid sentences. I don't know how I'm gonna get past that.
I'm sorry.
What is up with you, man? Are you okay?
I don't know. I've had a cough. I've had a cough for like.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like resurgent.
Oh, right.
I'm happy to do another take if you guys want to do another take.
No, I think we talked enough today.
You're gonna have to do a coughing thing because no, it's normally better like in the midday.
This one is much longer than the one before. At least I hope it's not too much longer. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Oh wait, that's the end. I thought you were gonna cut this bit off.
Yeah, he can replace it.
This is staying in.
Oh,
This is
man.
all staying in.
This is staying in.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I feel like as we go on, this is just more work for you to animate.
We'll see.
All right. Anyways, thanks for watching.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.